In this moment, it's a rocky road to a place I love with people I love. Rocky Point, Puerto Peñasco. This is an unfortunate episode of the Rocky Point podcast.
Welcome, Puerto Peñasco lovers. This is the Rocky Point podcast with award-winning host Thomas Baldrick.
Hello, I'm Thomas Baldrick. Bienvenidos and welcome. If you're new to our podcast, go ahead, check out Google or Apple or anywhere else, and you'll find that this production is a first for Puerto Peñasco. It's a first for me, and this episode is a first. You see, I'm not my usual fun-loving self behind this microphone. This is the first time I'm actually reading from a script. Usually I like to prepare myself for shows that I'm doing. I like to have ideas in mind, but remain open and spontaneous for whatever comes up. Having done a ton of work appearing on live television or on stage in front of live audiences, I've found this system usually works best for me. When it comes to my emotions, I like to think before I speak. This way I can choose my words wisely. I can then say what I think or feel with no regrets. I find this system usually works best for me too. But in this moment, usually is not what it usually is. These are extraordinary times in and around Puerto Peñasco. They're extraordinary in Mexico, and they're extraordinary in the United States. This is probably not your first rodeo. It's not mine either. Far from it. I've seen, felt, and experienced more pain in my life than the average bear, both personally and professionally. I'm feeling overwhelmed right now, but I'm not complaining. I'm not a victim. I'm just speaking my truth. So here's my disclaimer. Before anyone asks, why don't you just move to Puerto Peñasco if you love it so much? I can't. Why don't you help the poor people and others down there in need of assistance? I do, and I do it regularly. Before anyone wrongly accuses me of disrespecting the dead, just days after Mexico's Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead, let me be clear. Personally, I'm grieving the death of a unique young woman I adored. She recently passed at age 27 after suffering from a rare disease. My heart also aches for mi amiga at the Sonoran Sun Resort, who just suddenly lost her husband and daddy to her precious 2 little girls. Amazingly, I'm still not even over my pop-pop who had a heart attack, fell into my lap, and died when I was 4. So believe me, I get it. Professionally, I was on the ABC News team in El Paso covering the recent mass shooting at a Walmart. I've worked school shootings, terrorist beheadings. You name it, I've seen it. And I'm still wounded from being on the front lines of the September 11th tragedies nearly 20 years ago. I'm just a man with weaknesses, but strong enough to be sensitive and respectful to both the living and the lost. So here goes. Pardon my French or English if this offends you. But right now, it literally seems like there is a massive shitstorm hovering over Puerto Peñasco. 1, there are burst sewage pipes off Fremont Boulevard, which created a large, stinky, and unsightly pond made of poopy and pee-pee. Number 2, there is the recent news story of bodies discovered in the nearby desert. Number 3, there is even the more recent story of dual Mexican-American citizens being murdered in Northeast Sonora. And all of these elements linger like a brown cloud for the friends and families involved, for everyone who lives in Puerto Peñasco, and everyone who loves it as well. And oh yeah, it's all happening the week leading up to the Rocky Point Rally, the biggest event of the year in town for charity. Early in my TV career, I learned important things about facts. 1, facts are fearless. Facts don't care about rumors or conspiracy theories. No matter how big, loud, or powerful the mouths are that spread them. 2, facts are your friends. Facts may not always be what you hope, expect, or want to hear, but facts are righteous. They are truth. And the one fact which cannot be disputed right now is this: No one has all the facts. Not me, not you, not the haters on social media, not law enforcement officials, certainly not politicians, no one. To me, it's an even bigger tragedy. These separate storms have merged into what seems like a Category 5 hurricane. This, despite the facts not being known. People have suggested and requested I do a podcast on these storm elements with Puerto Peñasco. I plan to wait till after the final details of these stories were reported. But since it does feel to me like a Cat 5 hurricane, and I'm one of the many in its path, I've decided to tough it out. I've decided to publicly stay and protect my home, my heart, my neighbors, and my community. Issue number 1, the sewage problem. The facts are we don't know who is responsible or who to blame. I don't, and you probably don't either, have the expertise to know how to clean it up and how to stop it from happening again. We do know it is most unpleasant for those nearby. Needing to shut off the water only made the problem worse. Issue number 2, the bodies discovered in the desert. My heart goes out to every mother still searching or who has the remains of a loved one identified. Granted, fear of the unknown is rough, but the loss of a loved one leaves a scar which may never fully heal. I'm proof. I don't know where exactly the bodies were found in the desert, but I do hope on my next trip to find out. Knowledge is power. I do know many people are rushing to blame the cartel. Many others are rushing to say the bodies found were people buried because of their own wrong actions. Others are openly guessing the bodies may have been illegal immigrants who crossed human smugglers before they were able to cross the border into the U.S. These are the facts. If it ain't your first rodeo, it shouldn't be a newsflash that any desert is a no-brainer place to dump bodies. Many bodies are found in Arizona, in New Mexico, in Texas, in California. The deserts are a dumping ground, period. Fact, unless you are one of the coroners or certain law enforcement officials, we don't yet have a clue who these dead people were, how they died, how they got there, when and where they died, or why they died. We may never know. One overlooked fact with this story is critical for those who love Rocky Point. There is zero proof or known links that any of this has anything even remotely to do with one single tourist. Why city officials and tourism officials aren't getting in front of a microphone like this, I don't know. What I am pretty sure of is 2 more things. I can't beyond a doubt prove them as facts, though. First, as a loving father, if my son went missing, I would search for him until the end of the earth, just like the Madres Buscadoras de Sonora. Second, unless your human heart beats differently with a gaping open wound, you'd also be crushed by people rushing to judge your loved one without having facts. It reminds me of the saying by the Reverend Jesse Jackson, never look down on anybody unless you're helping them up. Nobody likes being sucker punched or kicked while they're down. I kind of think that's a fact. Issue number 3, Monday's unthinkable, horrific, heartbreaking crime involving dual Mexican-American citizens. The main fact we know is 9 women and little children were brutally murdered in northeastern Sonora near Chihuahua. With the online chatter, it shouldn't matter if they were part of a Mormon group which in some way may or have not practiced polygamy. Nobody deserves to be brutally massacred like that. Again, especially innocent little children. On top of that tragedy, no grieving family can bear or deserves to be included in dysfunctional social media debates. There is yet another overlooked fact with this tragedy. Where the ambush occurred is nearly a 10-hour drive from Puerto Peñasco, and that doesn't include added time for stopping to get gas or to enjoy potty breaks. To put this distance in perspective for Americans, think of it like saying it's not safe to go to New York City because there were murders way down in Charlotte, North Carolina, or in Ann Arbor, Michigan, or in Johnson City, Tennessee. And then there was the overnight alleged cartel incident in Agua Prieta. This took place more than a 5-hour drive from Rocky Point. It's like saying you can't go to Las Vegas because there was danger in Phoenix. And speaking of Las Vegas, 2 years ago on the Strip, 58 people were killed, more than 850 injured, and even more traumatized after a gunman, a fellow American, opened fire at a country music festival. It was the deadliest mass shooting in U.S. history, done by a white guy like me. But no politician issued a warning about Vegas. People never stop flocking there, and you don't hear the Rocky Point and Mexico haters saying a peep about the safety of Sin City and Chicago. According to statistics by the Chicago Tribune crime team, comes this fact, and it ain't fake news, friends. As of November 3rd, there have already been a mind-boggling 443 homicides in the Windy City this year. Staggering as that is, it's still 54 less murders than in Chicago last year. Again, where are the Rocky Point or Mexico haters trying to scare people into staying away from Chicago? By the way, it must be incredibly dangerous to go to Milwaukee or Madison, Wisconsin. Good Lord, they're less than 3-hour drives from Chicago. Where are these same online bullies with political agendas complaining about American schools being unsafe as mass shooting after mass shooting occurs where our children go to get an education? I could go on, but I won't. I could mention certain names or call people names, but I won't. Before I wrap, let me quickly explain my relationship with Rocky Point. First, I have a love affair with the Sea of Cortez. There's something about that body of water. I feel happy and excited and alive when I'm on my way to Rocky Point or when I'm there. I've been to many cool places and met many cool people, both Mexican locals and tourists. Plus, I miss countless priceless memories from fun I had at the Jersey Shore. Rocky Point gives me my beach fix. And here's a fun fact about it. Sandy Beach is the only one awarded a Clean Beach certification in Sonora. It's also the longest stretch of coastline to hold that status in all of Mexico. Puerto Peñasco is far from perfect. Same for Mexico, same for the U.S., and same for me. Still, I hope we are all worthy of love and respect despite our obvious flaws. And finally, speaking of love, yesterday I created a new Facebook group. It's called We Love Puerto Peñasco, Rocky Point. I invite you all to join. Let's connect, communicate, and commiserate if we must for the time being. And let's grow our community online as well as on location. My friends, you have power and freedom when it comes to Rocky Point. I hope you don't get scared off by others. I hope you make your own decision that's best for you. For what it's worth, I wish I had a peso for every time I heard someone declare Rocky Point wasn't safe, only to find out the person making the declaration has never once been there. They've only known it or they heard about it. May these tragic times pass quickly for the families who have lost loved ones or for others who are hurt or will be hurt by these hurricane-like tragedies. May God bless America. May God also bless Mexico. I'm Thomas Baldrick. Until next time, adios, friends. As always, we appreciate you being part of the Rocky Point Podcast.